My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor in South Central Alaska, and my mission is to help you build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. Now, a big part of that is keeping you informed on what is going on in real estate in South Central Alaska and really Alaska as a whole. Because today what we're going to be looking at is not just the update on what's going on in the South Central area, but we're also going to be looking at how Alaska is doing just at the macro level as a state. How are we doing? And then how are the big market centers doing outside of South Central Alaska? We'll be looking at the inventory, and we'll be looking at the average sold price for Anchorage, the MatSu Valley, Fairbanks, and Kenai. And then at the very end, we're going to sum it all up and take a look at that 30,000 foot view to see how we're doing. So lots of great stuff ahead, some really cool insights. Before we get started, as always, make sure you give this video a like, make sure that you subscribe so you can stay up to date on what's going on, and let's go and jump into it. First place we're going to look at is going to be Anchorage. It's the largest market in Alaska, so this is obviously going to be the place that we start. Now over here, you see a precipitous drop from where we were this time last year. Because keep in mind, this is just looking at the past month here, at least for the last month of October. It was about 862. Now it's about mid 500 or so is what we're seeing for the active inventory. So inventory is really low, is really what this graph shows us. And that's really kind of true all the way across the board here, that inventory has been low this year. The next thing that we're going to check out is the average sold price for homes, just homes, that are in Anchorage. This shows us the average sold price this year went up. Average sold price right now in Anchorage, at least for the past month, is going to be about $406,000. Average sold price, same time period last year though, shows us the average sold price was right about $363,000, right there in that range. So inventory is down, sales price is way up. We'll talk more about it in the summary, but that's what we're seeing for Anchorage. Switching gears a little bit, let's take a look at the MatSu Valley and get a feel for how much inventory we have. This is even more dramatic than what we saw for Anchorage, because this over here is clearly showing us there's way less inventory than there was this time last year. Roughly about half of the inventory that was available last year is available now in the MatSu Valley. It's a big deal. The next thing we want to check out is the average sold price in the MatSu Valley. This year, we're seeing it has obviously gone way up, because the average sold price in the MatSu Valley is roughly about $314,000. Last year, it was roughly about $272,000, somewhere right there in that range. So just like Anchorage, inventory's way down, average sales price is way up, which is something we would expect with low inventory. One thing I would point out real quick about the MatSu Valley, look behind me at all the other months up to this point and what the average sold price has been. Even during the fall time, we typically associate with being a slower time, maybe less money is what we would typically say. Average sold price is actually way above what the past couple of years have been during the summertime. So that's just to kind of give you some perspective. Switching gears again, let's go and take a look at Fairbanks. So with this over here, this is a smaller market, so let's keep that in mind. And what we're still seeing though is that the inventory we had last year was roughly about 132 homes that were on the market. This year, 70. Now, that's a smaller market. It is precipitously been going down on inventory in Fairbanks for a number of years at this point. For example, in 2017, the inventory in Fairbanks for the past month was about 265. So that gives you an idea on just how pressed down the inventory is getting in Fairbanks at the moment. You know what we're going to look at next? Let's take a look at the average sold price for properties in Fairbanks. So this one's a little bit unique, Because keep in mind the trend is for other market centers, less inventory, more average sold price. We're actually seeing that's not the same pattern we see here in Fairbanks. Way less inventory, and the average sales price has actually gone down a little bit as well. Average sold price was about $265 about a year ago for this month. Now we're seeing it's about $255,000. And we're actually seeing not a huge increase in the price in Fairbanks, really just across the board here, like what we've seen in Anchorage and the MatSu Valley. So this is a little bit of an anomaly from what we usually would expect with seeing less inventory, and that's what we're seeing so far for Fairbanks. Let's take a quick break from today's video. Did you know I am going to be starting a podcast in January of 2021? Well, you do now. The purpose of the podcast is we're going to be answering the questions for all of you who are thinking about answering the call and moving to Alaska. We're also going to be interviewing Alaskans. These are the authentic people who actually live up here and what their stories and experiences have been living on the last frontier. It's a project I've really been looking forward to a long time. It's not something that's quite as conducive on YouTube, so I'm looking forward to creating the podcast and just giving you a slice of what it's like living up here in Alaska from the people who actually live up here. Now, without further ado, let's go and jump back into today's video. Switching gears again, let's look at the Kenai Peninsula. Keep in mind, this is the entire Kenai Peninsula and is in fact not just the town of Kenai. So looking at this, we're seeing that the inventory available even last year was 530 homes. This year, it's 314 homes are available. That's kind of a big cut in inventory, and it's also the same we're seeing really across the entire board here for really the past year. So inventory is down in the Kenai as well. Now let's take a look at the average sold price for homes in the Kenai Peninsula. We're seeing right now that the average sold price is going to be about $284. And the average sold price last year, about $279,000. So that's going to be pretty steady. We're not seeing a huge jump in the average sold price like what we saw in the MatSu Valley or in Anchorage. It's staying steady, and you can even see behind me for the past months we've actually seen a pretty good increase in the average sold price, but it's not like just an insane number that's just shot up all of a sudden. So that's what we're seeing so far for the Kenai Peninsula. Now, we've taken just a quick look at what's going on inside each one of the big markets here in Alaska. Now let's take a big 30,000 foot view and see what the numbers are showing us. At the moment, we're seeing over here the inventory is obviously much lower across the board for residential homes than what we're seeing in the past year. There's 1,780 homes that are on the market. Last year, we're seeing that we actually had about 2,932 homes were on the market. So inventory across the board is pretty reflective of, so this kind of reflects what we've seen already from the other markets. The inventory across the board is going down. Now this chart here really is telling to me, because it's one thing if we have a lot less inventory and the demand for homes goes down as well. And I mean, we'd essentially just have the same market that we had before. Inventory goes down, but demand goes down too. You're pretty much stuck to where you were before. But this chart actually does show us that even with there being less inventory across the board, the demand is still staying about where it was before. Because you see over here, average pending ratio, in other words, how many properties of those that are on the market are already under contract, it's gone up significantly to 57%. So that means that what we saw before with with the active inventory being at about 1,780, more than half of those are actually not available. So that just shows me the inventory remains low, but demand is still high as well. Next thing that we're going to take a look at is going to be the number of new listings coming onto the market, because you would think with the super strong seller's market we have at the moment that everybody would be trying to get their home on the market, right? Well, you would think so, but that's not what the numbers are showing us. This actually shows us that we have 408 homes that came on the market last month across the entire state, whereas last year 432 homes came on the market during the same time period. So what that means, this is typically going to be the time of year that's a little bit more inventory scarce, and it's actually even more scarce than what it usually is, while the demand is actually higher in comparison to what we have available. So that's another really strong indicator on what the market is doing. The final thing I want to look at is the average sold price for homes in Alaska that sold in the past month. This chart here clearly shows us that it's doing pretty well. Average sold price last month was $349,000. Compared to last year, it was $301,000. So across the board, people are making more money who are selling their homes now. Obviously, we're going to feel a big jump in that statistic just based off of what's going on in the Anchorage and the MatSu Valley markets, just because that is such a big part of the Alaska real estate market. Now, in summary, where does this leave us? Well, where it leaves us is there's a couple of really good takeaways. Number one, inventory, regardless, the market is going to be down. So if you're looking for a home, you need to be highly intentional about what it is that you're looking for. Number two, for the vast majority of the state, we're seeing that the average sold price is up. Great if you're a seller. If you're a buyer, then maybe not as great, but the fact of the matter is that interest rates are so low right now that you can actually afford that bump up in price. Obviously, you have to be careful, run the math, make sure it works out. But once you start messing around with the interest rate, the actual percentage of what the mortgage is, you start seeing the math balances out actually a lot better than you would think. So because buyers can afford more now, the price of homes are going up accordingly, is really what we're seeing. So where does this leave us now? Well, we don't really see any sign of the inventory suddenly swapping around anytime soon or making any kind of big adjustment. I know everyone is, or a lot of investors I've talked to anyway, are kind of licking their chops, getting ready for Barron's bonanza that might be coming up. I'm not entirely convinced that's what's going to happen here. I'm not convinced we're going to see suddenly a lot of foreclosures hitting the market. And I'll be talking about that in another video, but I don't really see that happening in the near future. As far as I can see, for the immediate future, we are going to have a low inventory market until as many sellers as possible decide to take advantage of this. So if you're on the fence about selling, it's a great time to sell, no reason not to. If you are a buyer, we've got to be highly intentional. If you're looking at somewhere kind of in the Kenai Peninsula or Fairbanks, we definitely have to be very intentional about what it is that we're looking at. Thank you for watching. I sure hope this video has been useful for you. If it has, make sure you give it a like, and also, if you have any questions, post those in the comments section down below. I get to as many of those as I possibly can. If you need to reach out to me directly, reach out to me through my Facebook page. Link for that is going to be in the description down below. And if you're wanting to check out just what Alaska looks like from the boots on the ground perspective, make sure to follow my Instagram page. That's going to be down below. And if you're ready to start looking for homes anywhere in Alaska, make sure you download my app and go ahead and start your search that way.
Downloading my app is pretty simple. You simply scroll to the description section of my videos, click on the link there. It's going to take you to my website. From there, scroll down, hit download app. It'll take you to a place where you enter in your phone number. Enter that in, click send link. It's going to text you a link to the App Store. And from there, you'll have to click on that, enter in your email address, and then it's going to register you to the app, and you'll be able to start modifying your search. You can modify number of bedrooms, bathrooms, property type. You have a lot of modifications you can do on there, or just draw a shape to it. From there, you'll have the ability to go and just browse through, create your own specific saved searches on there that's going to make sense for you. Go ahead and add notes just so it makes sense. And that's going to be kind of the basic search capabilities. There are a lot of extra bonuses and things to this that make it really beneficial, like walking you through the entire process as a buyer or seller and giving you all the details that's involved with each one of those steps. So never at any point are you going to be lost in the process. So we've kind of just scratched the surface here, but that's just to get you started.